Hi, I'm John Conrad. Today we're going to discuss some quick fixes and lower end renovations that you can do before listing your home for sale. So the first thing to do, I think, when you're preparing your house for sale is to go through it and really make sure that everything is fixed. In one house in particular I went through, there was a tile in the bathroom that was chipped. It was only one tile, it was a subway tile. It's something that's really easy to fix. You can go on YouTube and see how to repair that tile. But as soon as the buyer saw it, it just made them start to think that the house wasn't cared for and they're worried what was behind that wall. So this is one thing that turns someone off, and it's literally a $5 fix. So what I would just say to do is go through your house and make sure everything's tightened up. Now everything doesn't have to be perfect, but if you have loose tiles or the doors don't open quite right, spend a few minutes to stand them so that they open smoothly. Sometimes hinges can be off in your cabinets on your kitchens, and that can make the doors look uneven. So just go through with the hinges. There's usually an adjustment you can make so they open perfectly and shut perfectly. It's not hard to do, and it just takes the time to do it, but it makes a huge difference when someone's walking through the house to see it and then potentially purchase it. The next thing to do in your house is to paint. People often want to kind of shy away from this because they look at their house and they say, oh, it's just fine, the next person can come in and paint. The reality is there's really not many people who want to go into a house and fix it up anymore. I think there's such a good market for flippers because there's a lot of people who just shy away from absolutely any manual labor, and they're not going to do it. Flippers can come in and they know that if they paint some things, make it look fresh, they can sell it for a big premium that people will pay. If you're a seller, don't let a flipper just take advantage of your money like this. So go through and just use light colors. Make sure that it's a general taste and not to your personal preference. You know, I've gone through a lot of homes and they have a pretty color of like a deep purple or a dark green. And that's a great color, and you might enjoy it for your own personal bedroom or your house or your study. But it really doesn't work for most buyers. So as soon as they walk into that house, they're going to say, oh, I've got to paint that room. That becomes one more chore on top of other little things that they see in the house, and then they kind of shy away from it. People want to move into a house that's completely ready and they don't have to touch it. The other easy thing, and it's much easier than a kitchen renovation, is simply paint your cabinets. People always think that they have to do a full kitchen renovation or nothing, and that's really not true. As long as the cabinets are in decent shape, all you have to do is basically take off the hinges and take off the handles and the pulls. Then go through and you just sand them down with a light sandpaper. You can get like 180 grit sandpaper, sand it till it's pretty smooth and nice. You can use filler to fill any little dents. And then what you're going to do is you can use a primer. I use Zinsser primer, and you prime the cabinets. And then you're going to use an enamel paint with a foam brush that's firm. And when you do that, you just roll it onto the cabinets, and you're going to get a very nice, even, smooth cabinet. Then the other big piece is to get hinges. So a lot of times older cabinets are going to have hinges that you can see on the outside. These usually don't look too good. So what you're going to do is you're going to buy a hinge that sits on the inside of the cabinet. Now the only difference with this and the old hinges is these hinges are going to be hidden. It's not a hard thing to do. You screw them on and that's it. But now what you've done is you've gone kind of an old looking cabinet that's got a hinge on the outside to a hidden cabinet, and you just open it and it's very smooth and nice. When you add a new handle with it, you know, I like to use stainless steel handles, you literally look like you have a new kitchen. The next piece to address would be landscaping. I think too often people don't realize that when someone drives up to the house, the first thing, and really they make their decision so quickly, is based on just their first opinion of that house. And what's the first thing you see? You see the weeds in the corner of the house, or you see the overgrown yard. So just make sure everything's green and throw in a couple flowers. It's very cheap. If you know you're going to sell your house midsummer, just throw some seeds in the garden bed. You don't even have to do much. You just have to get rid of the weeds and make sure the grass is green. One thing as far as trees. Now, I love trees, but if you have a tree that's sitting right in front of the house, Even if it's a beautiful tree, and it might be hard to do, but get rid of that tree because it's going to really make the house look a lot better, and you're going to be able to see the whole home if you don't have a big tree in front. A lot of people use shrubs and evergreens in the house, and when they're young and new, it looks great. But as those grow old, they cover the house and they really make everything look older than they need to. The next part to address is your lighting. So often, people have a home from the 80s and they have this kind of real metal 80s looking lighting. They're not good lights. They don't provide a lot of light in the home either. So it's very cheap to replace the lighting. You don't have to bring in new sockets or anything else. Keep it where it is, but then you get two advantages. One, the light itself looks fresher. But two, you're going to add a lot of brightness when you turn on that light. And that's so important because it makes everything look much bigger. So another one, and this can be a little more expensive as well, is when you want to redo a bathroom. So many times you've got an old bathroom from the 50s or 60s where they had a lot of wild colors that really don't work very well today. You have two options there. Really, you can go all in with that style and keep it to that style. And the other way to do it is to just kind of go over the tile. A lot of people don't realize it, but as long as the tile's in good shape, they make a number of products that you basically paint onto the existing tile after you've cleaned it very well. And then you can tile over it with the fresh tile. The only problem here is sometimes the tile gets a little higher on the floor, so you have to make sure that it's a good transition between two different floorings outside the bathroom and in. And then the other part is you just have to cut your door a little shorter to make sure it opens. But other than that, it's very durable, and then it is brand new tile for the flooring. And that's usually floors in a bathroom are relatively small, so it's not that expensive a fix. As far as on the walls and the bathtub itself, you can have someone come in and usually for the neighborhood of $300 to $700, they'll literally spray on a very strong paint. If they do it just on the bathtub, it looks exactly like any other bathtub that's white. It really comes off looking good. If you do it on the tile, they actually paint over the tile grout as well. So sometimes it's a little too flat and white looking, but it still can be a huge improvement over the old wild colors from the 50s and 60s. So as the last point, I think, is the one that's often the most overlooked, and it's absolutely free. Just make sure your home's really clean. This week, again, I've gone through some homes that just weren't clean. And it's an automatic turnoff no matter how nice the house is otherwise. Went through this beautiful home, but the people just didn't clean it. And then all people do is focus on the dirt. That really makes no sense when you're trying to buy a house to focus on the dirt or to focus on these small details, but that's what people feel. And that's a big part of real estate is you always have to worry about the emotion. So I always tell people, half of real estate is the emotion that someone has when they come in to look at the property. If it's dirty, they're just going to want to get out of there. Make sure that there's no smell from animals, especially in basements. There's that musky smell. It's not always because there's a lot of water. Sometimes it's just because people do not clean enough, or they don't remove a bucket of water that's been sitting there for a long time next to the washing machine. Those are very little things that are easy to change, but they make a huge difference on your sales price. As always, if you have any questions, please enter them below, and I'll see you next time.